This new facility will provide a space for seniors to connect, learn, and thrive, a spokesperson said. That's all for now. I'm Dalton Barrett with News Radio WGNS, and I'll talk to you later.
The Good Neighbor Network, on air and online at wgnsradio.com. Rutherford County's most trusted source for local news. CBS Radio News.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by O'Reilly Auto Parts.
I'm Deborah Rodriguez. An investigation is underway into the deaths of actor Gene Hackman, his wife, Betsy Arakawa, and their dog, after sheriff's deputies in New Mexico found their bodies at their home in Santa Fe. Officials say they do not suspect foul play. Hackman said he was grateful for his success in Hollywood.
I think I've been very lucky that I've been offered quite a good variety of things to do.
He won 2 Academy Awards, one for The French Connection.
You took off your shoes, put your finger between your toes and pick your feet, didn't you? That's it! Yes!
He won the other for Unforgiven. Gene Hackman was 95, Betsy Arakawa, 63. Get ready to pay more for products from Canada and Mexico next week. President Trump made the announcement on Truth Social. Tariffs on goods from both countries will go into effect March 4th, and China will be charged an additional 10%. The president will meet with his British counterpart today.
I'm Vicky Barker in London, where Brits are watching their left-leaning Prime Minister Keir Starmer trying to find common ground with President Trump ahead of their White House meeting.
We share the view that our best days lie ahead.
But any optimism about today's encounter could be misplaced. Starmer wants Ukraine, and Europe for that matter, included in any negotiations about Ukraine's future, something Trump has made clear he opposes.
The Pentagon's made a move to get rid of transgender service members. It's filed a court document asking to bar anyone with a, quote, current diagnosis, history of, or symptoms consistent with gender dysphoria. Military consultant Jeff McCausland.
Sadly, what's going to happen, though, is the military will lose some highly qualified people who are performing admirably, perhaps not necessarily in direct combat roles, but in roles in cyber and roles in support and roles in intelligence gathering. And these are highly qualified people that are now being asked to step aside.
Friends and acquaintances of the late Jeffrey Epstein may be bracing. Attorney General Pam Bondi tells Fox the Justice Department will likely release records on the late accused pedophile today.
What you're going to see is a lot of flight logs, a lot of names, a lot of information. It's pretty sick what that man did.
Our own Gayle King is headed to space. She made the announcement on CBS Mornings. She'll make history on Blue Origin's first all-woman flight.
I wanted to open myself up to new adventures and step out of my comfort zone.
Took a little nudging before she agreed to join Katy Perry and Lauren Sanchez for an 11-minute journey on the New Shepard spacecraft this spring.
This was never my dream.
No. Yes, but Gayle,
it was never my dream, and somebody said, well, maybe you need to have new dreams, Gayle.
The Dow is up 102 points. This is CBS News.
Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get the parts and service you need fast from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, let's talk ED because millions of men experience it, but not everyone can access or afford treatments like Viagra. Well, Hims can help. Through Hims.com, you can get a full range of treatment options for ED, including daily or as-needed meds through a 100% online process. It all starts with an online intake form. Get started at hims.com/joy, and from there, a medical provider licensed in your state will determine if ED treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your medication is shipped to you for free. Find the ED treatment that fits your needs with options up to 95% less than the brand names. Millions of men experience ED, but Hims can help. To start your free online visit and save up to 95%, go to hims.com/joy. That's hims.com/joy for your free online visit. HIMS.com/JOY.
We're the Good Neighbor Network, FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, audio and video streaming at wgnsradio.com. This is the Roundtable. A look at the news, views, politics, and people that are shaping Rutherford County.
Good morning. This is Bill Krause on the WGNS Roundtable, Thursday morning edition. And what a beautiful day this is. You know, spring is in the air. The flowers will start blooming. The frogs will be croaking. And here we are on WGNS. This morning we have not only one of the most informative and motivating people that I have ever met, but a dear, dear friend, a colleague, an associate. She is the Dean of Humanities and Social Science at Motlow State Community College. And I wanted to reintroduce herself as she did previously of her background. Dr. or Dean, however we best term it, Pam Harris. And welcome, Pam.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm glad to be here again.
It's always a pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much. I have to agree with you. It's absolutely a beautiful day. I was posting a little post last night on Facebook, and it was talking about, every day when you get up, especially as you get older, I think you go, wow, there's a million reasons not to get up. You can think like that, or you can think, wow, there's a million that I can. There's a reason for me to get up. There's so many things in the world that we can get up and do, and just keeping that positive attitude and being happy to get up and thinking, wow, today, if I get up and accomplish one thing that's meaningful, if I touch one life, if something good can happen, but you get a choice in that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that in our society we've really kind of moved away from, is the idea we get to choose so much of our joy and our happiness. We make a choice about what we get to get up and do today. And I think we really have to get up with that positive thought, concentrating on the idea, I want to make a difference today.
And you know what's so fascinating, and then I want to turn back to having you tell us how you got to here and your background born. Sure. And you've got a real diverse background, which I love and I respect. But as you were talking, I immediately thought the class environment in school is directly impacted by the weather and how the men and women in class come into school. And, during that cold weather we've had for the last several weeks, students all bundled up and what have you, or when it's in the middle of summertime in the heat. But you get a beautiful 71, 72-degree day, and they're like the birds. They're chirping.
They are.
Give us your background, born where and how you evolved all the way to be with Motlow.
Wow, that's such a long story.
Well, we've got about
right?
a 4-hour marathon.
That is a long story, right? I was born in Birmingham, Alabama, 1963. So it was in the middle of a very interesting time. I was born on the east side of Alabama, so it was very chaotic during that time period.
Near Birmingham, did you say?
In Birmingham.
Old Connor.
Yes, it was that time period.
Yep,
and on the
well.
east side, right. So it was on the poorer side of Birmingham, a lot of chaos and controversy. I was actually at the age of 6 was in one of the first integrated first grade classes. So I grew up in the middle of the civil rights movement.
Yep.
So there was a lot going on in my life. I think that was highly impactful to the person that I became. Because as I grew up, I really saw that. I made friends that were different. That impacted my life in such a great way. I had a teacher who came into my classroom, and it really impacted my life. She was the first African-American teacher to come into those white classrooms and into that integrated area there. And she really impacted my life because I saw she really had a passion and a love for education. And her name was Miss Green. She got married. She became Miss Morris. Now, that was my first grade teacher, and I'm 61 years old and still remember that.
The name.
I still remember that. So, she taught me that real love for just the ability to make a change. One person making a change, and watching her and understanding that, one person, if they just stand up for what's right, if they do the right thing. So, going from Birmingham, growing up there in Birmingham.
Out of consideration with what you said, and she had to be an especially talented and gifted person to go into a new environment that was full of chaos and challenge and opposition, etc., and how to manage that environment for its effectiveness.
Yes.
I have to tell you a bad joke. Her last name was Morris.
It was.
Have you ever been introduced to Morris?
No.
You're supposed to say Morris who?
Morris who?
To Morris Friday. All right, here we go. Sorry about that. Back to you, Pam.
No. So I grew up there. Like I said, I grew up on the poor side of town, and then, went to school there, and then they moved us to a different school, and that was a struggle in middle school because they moved us to, what they considered whatever the ritzier side of town, and that all played a part in really my heart and developing that real passion and love I have for those who are at risk.
Yes.
And that's really where that started, because I was on that side where I saw, how a person treated a particular way impacted their life in a long-term way. And so as I grew and as I matured, I really had that passion for those who struggle. For me later on when I met my husband, it impacted us. It impacted what I did in
How did you
school.
meet?
I worked at State Farm, and he happened to...
That's right. You were in the insurance business.
Yes, I was in
and
the insurance.
I'm a State Farm client, so
yes.
I relate well.
So he came in to where I was working, and so we met that way. And then,
Was he a client?
Yes, he was.
Oh, so you bought your auto insurance?
Yes, he was. He actually, he was a single guy who came in and bought life insurance, and so I thought, oh, that's really weird. That was
who was his beneficiary?
I guess it was your mom.
Oh, okay.
I think it was his mom. And so, I thought that is a strange single guy, but a caring one. It really said something to me, about him. So when I met him and then, we got married. So I met him and he'd been a police officer, and he was really involved in his community. Like, he would go into the at-risk community and go to the schools and those kinds of things and work with the kids. And so when we met, there was kind of this, wow, we're the people that are supposed to be together. We got married, and within a year, we're talking about becoming foster parents. We couldn't have biological children ourselves. And so we're like, let's be foster parents. We became foster parents, and we became youth ministers, and we adopted children.
How many children did you adopt?
We adopted two.
Bless
we adopted
your heart.
2 boys.
Related, or were they separate
No,
adoptions?
they were separate. We went through the process multiple times and ended up with 2 boys that are from different backgrounds. And so, just this heart for those who are at risk. But I ended up in psychology because of that. That was part of that story. There are a lot of things that go with why I ended up in psychology. But
even from State Farm.
Yeah.
You had to have a degree in psychology.
Yeah,
to
I did.
survive.
And I had a boss that really, which he passed away this year, sadly, but my boss really encouraged me to go back to school. And so when I went back, I thought, hey, psychology is a great thing. And after I got married, I wanted to be a counselor. And then after deciding that, hey, I want to be a counselor, once we became foster parents, I just thought, you know what? I cannot counsel all day and give everything to that, and then those children be without the support I need to give them. I know there's a high burnout rate in counselors.
Yes.
And so all of a sudden I went, oh no, I'm one class short of being a counselor, except for, of course, you have a long internship. And I thought, what in the world am I going to do? So I thought about it, of course, and these are my opinions, so I'm going to say I prayed about it, right? So, what am I going to do here? And I thought, well, I wanted to be a teacher when I was 18 years old. My parents in the 80s discouraged me from becoming a teacher.
Really?
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Was there a reason, or they just thought?
They just did not think that was a good career if I was going to be on my own. Teachers didn't make a lot. Wow, that hadn't changed much.
No.
They did not think that would be a good career. They thought business would be a much better career, which, by the way...
Were you an only child?
I was not. My brother worked for Alabama Power. He was an engineer. And my parents thought that I should go into something in business or something that would make more money so that I could support myself at a higher income. That's, they came from my mother and father both came from a very impoverished, really, truly, and we grew up poor, as I said earlier. So they really wanted me to make money.
Survival was the name of the game.
Survival was the name of the game, right? Yep. And so teaching, although... and income just was not what they had hoped for me, right? But as an adult and in psychology, I thought, oh, I can teach college, dreaming of that big salary in college, ha, ha, ha,
yes.
Right? But, decided, and so, I decided, okay, I'll teach college, and that worked out well, especially being a foster
and
parent.
you started where in college teaching?
I started in Alabama at Central Alabama Community College.
So you started on the community college level.
I did.
Adjunct initially?
I did. I started adjunct, and then we moved to Huntsville. My husband took a job in Tullahoma, but we were finishing the adoption on our youngest child, and we could not leave the state of Alabama. So my husband drove from Huntsville to Tullahoma, Tennessee, which is about an hour and 20 minutes.
Wow.
For 5 years. We did that. And
I get a new car every year.
So we did that. And during that time period, I worked at Athens State in Calhoun. And then I got a full-time job at Alabama A&M. And when I went to Alabama A&M, it really played into my passion there. I started a supplemental instruction program, a tutoring program there for at-risk students and for students who were struggling. I was an academic counselor at Alabama A&M. Even though I had a master's in psychology, I just really felt very passionate about that. And so we started a program there. We didn't have any students at all in that program, and within 2 years of the 5,000 students at Alabama A&M, we ended up about 2,000 students filtering through our program.
Really?
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. I won the President's Award for that. So,
have you been able, not currently, but at least over the period of time, track the success of some of your students?
Yes, I actually am friends with many of those students on Facebook. Leon Hampton is an attorney. Brittany Williams, she is a speech pathologist. I have students who went on to Cornell. I mean, really successful students. A lot of the students that worked for me, Alicia Williams she has a PhD in biology. I mean, they were incredibly successful. I'm still friends, like I said.
That's the rewards of teaching. Believe it or not, you can't take it to the bank, but you can take it to heaven.
And it's so wonderful because, like, for the especially the kids that worked for me in the tutoring program, like they would take the classes, and then if they did really well in a class, the way supplemental instruction would work is I would hire them, and they would be peer mentors for the next group that came along. So the ones that I hired and became peer mentors, I had really strong relationships with them. So all the ones that I was mentioning there that have gone on, I still talk to them. We went to one of their weddings. It's just incredible the relationships that I formed with those students in 2 years. Now, they're in their 30s. They have children. But I still get to follow them. They'll still message me, hey, hey, Miss Harris, hey, Dr. Harris. Now, in that time period, I became Dr. Harris. I was still working.
Oh, and you were working on your doctorate.
I was working on my doctorate.
Family and
working
teaching.
Teaching and doing a job and working on my PhD, one class at a time.
Wow, what did you do that at?
I did it with Capella University.
Okay, good.
So I did it online, but it took forever. I literally
did it.
In psychology. I have a PhD in psychology. Now my master's, my sociology is from the New Mexico universities.
And that was online?
Yes, I did it online.
I couldn't see you commute every week to Albuquerque or Santa Fe.
It was at the time when I was getting my sociology hours, it was the only sociology program in the United States.
Wow.
So I had to work really hard and convince them to accept me. But when I went to Motlow and I was adjuncting for Motlow when I was at Alabama A&M, I knew we were going to move to Tullahoma with my husband's job. And so when I was adjuncting for, when I was working at Alabama A&M, I started adjuncting for Motlow. So I was driving from Huntsville to Fayetteville to get to teach psychology, and I met Stephen Guerin there. And I said, how can I get a full-time job at Motlow when I move here? And he goes, we never, ever can find sociology teachers. And now as a dean, I can pretty much say the same thing. That is the truth. So I stopped my PhD. I'm in the middle of working on my PhD. I stopped my PhD and went back and got my sociology hours so that I could teach sociology. And it is, in fact, what I got my job in was teaching sociology. It is. It is.
At Motlow at Fayetteville.
Yes, I started at
the one building campus.
The one building campus. Yep. Yes, I taught dual enrollment students most frequently. So So your journey at Motlow went from adjunct down at Tullahoma. Yes.
And then you went full-time in sociology. What year was that?
I went full-time in 2012. This one I last.
13 years it's been. Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Sir. Yes, sir.
And
I started 2007 adjuncting, though.
Okay.
So I adjuncted for a while, but I had a full-time job in Alabama, so that adjuncting was just kind of to keep me in that field.
I started adjuncting at Motlow Smyrna in 2004 when there was 3 classes at the military, the base at Smyrna.
Yeah, and, it's changed a lot, hadn't it?
300 students.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So when did you start moving into leadership at Motlow?
Somewhere along that line, I mean, I love teaching, and I will go back to teaching, to be honest with you. That really will always be my passion. But I guess probably somewhere about 3.5 years ago, I was approached about going into leadership, and I just was like, I don't know. It was that first go round that I was like, I don't think so. I loved teaching. I really loved being in the classroom. But I've always thought there's some great wisdom in talking to people that are in that space when you get ready to move into the next space, or if you're trying to decide about moving on to something else. So I called Scott Cook, who is
I remember Scott,
who is one of my I would consider one of my mentors, and Dr. Letha Bennett, who was the person who hired me at Alabama A&M. And so, I'm like, okay, why do you go into administration? I wanted to know why do people do that job? Because, I love teaching. I love being in a classroom and sharing with my students. I learn as much from my students as I think they learn from me. And so I talked to him, and he said, when you're looking at administration, one of the things that you have to look at is really the big picture, is the idea that when teachers, like in my case, I have 64 adjuncts right now and 33 full-time people. So I have 97 teachers that work for me. So when you look at something like that, and then you think about that in each one of those classes, I don't know how many people you have in your classes, but, you can have anywhere from probably 12 to, we have some classes, 24 to 35 in some of the classes. So, I mean, literally thousands of students. And so Scott said, you have to think about, if you can go into a job where teachers feel appreciated, feel that you trust them, are allowed to do their jobs, then you're not just impacting 170 or 80 students like I would have every semester. He goes, you literally are impacting all those lives. He said, so for me, I had to look at it in that way. So I really went home and I thought about it, and I thought, okay, I think I want to try doing this. And some days my job is very frustrating. I'm not gonna say that it's not, but
it's called opportunity for thought.
Opportunity for thought. It is, but the reality of it is every job is frustrating. It comes in waves, right? Teaching can be that way too, right?
Especially grading papers.
Yeah. I always
read and read and read.
I always say teachers just get paid for grading. The rest of us for fine. But so when I thought about that, so about 3 years ago, Charlie Coffey talked me into it.
There's a remarkable woman too. Yes.
Right, in education for 40 years. And so, she basically, I always tell everybody, she talked me into it. And so in December 3 years ago, I started as dean of the Moore County campus. And then about 6 months after that, we switched to discipline specific. And then at that time, I went to, they switched to making me dean of humanities and social sciences. And in that one, I have 13 disciplines.
Wow.
So.
But some years ago, I was dean at a private school of business. And I always would say to faculty, every one of you should be, in fact, including myself, teach one class. I mean, I think for you to still keep teaching one class, not only does it still respond to a love and a passion, more importantly, you still have the opportunity to see what's the big picture from a teacher's position.
Right.
And one of the beauties of you, and I'm going to be very complimentary about you for this program, one of the beauties of you is it's not just your psychology background, it's not just your fact of even working in the insurance industry, but you see the big picture from the human side,
Right.
not necessarily from the strategic side. Strategy does play a role, but when you hear an issue, you hear a problem, you immediately look upon it as from the human side. You're extraordinarily motivating, not in the traditional textbook method of motivating, smile and positive, but you're motivating because you have a heart.
Thank you.
And you have a heart for people.
Thank you.
Carrying that degree, and I am also taking a look because we'll have a break in a moment, but I want to start talking about a year ago.
Okay.
And how life has led you to a year ago, and even how that has played an element and role in your life. So we'll be hearing that story when we return. We are visiting with Dr. Pam Harris, serving as the dean for the last 3+ years of humanities and social sciences at Mantlo State. A woman with a heart, a woman with a talent, and certainly a woman with a gift.
Thank you.
First Shot, growing in Christ with life and athletic skills.
So we teach God's Word at everything we do to implant it in them so that they understand that the only way to get through the world is with God on their side.
First Shot founder and executive director Andy Herzer.
Our focus is on our inner city here at Patterson Park.
From academics to athletics, First Shot's focus is toward building a stronger, more courageous spirit to face opportunities and obstacles that our youth confront every day. To find out more about First Shot, go to firstshottn.org.
Life's too short to stress about insurance. That's why Rick Hall at Rayburn Insurance is here to make sure you have the right coverage without all the hassle. He'll work hard to provide you with personalized service and finding the best solutions for you and your family. Whether you're looking for auto, home, or business insurance, Rick Hall's got you covered. Rick Hall at Rayburn Insurance Agency. Let him handle the details so you can focus on what really matters.
Fellas, if you've noticed a lack of energy, motivation, and drive, it could be low testosterone. Don't wait. Get checked by the experts at Low T Center. They have over a decade of experience helping patients achieve life-changing results with testosterone therapy, or TRT. And for established patients, they offer the convenience of physician-monitored at-home TRT with advanced personalized plans that include both lab testing and self-inject medication. Low T Center makes it easy, shipping directly to your door. Go to lowtcenter.com now to book your appointment online. Low T Center, reinventing men's health care.
This is Good Neighbor Events with Bart Walker. Brought to you by the law offices of John Day and AmeriCare Pest Control.
I've got pests. AmeriCare Services Incorporated, family-owned and operated. For residential and commercial customers, we offer a full range of services. Our services include one-time, monthly, and quarterly pest control, termite control, moisture and fungus control, automatic foundation vents, and more. Licensed, insured, and bonded for your protection. 893-7111.
All the best of the best to get rid of your pest.
AmeriCare Services Incorporated.
Let's check those WGNS Good Neighbor events. Want to remind you the Discovery Center at Murphy Spring presents Wine and Whiskey at the Wetlands. That'll be Friday night, March 7th, over at the Discovery Center at Murphy Spring. That's at 502 Southeast Broad Street. It begins at 6 o'clock Friday evening, March 7th, at the Discovery Center at Murphy Spring. Maybe you're new to the community and would like to learn more about our local history. Well, you need to come over to the one-room Ransom Schoolhouse every Saturday morning from 9 until noon. Members of the Rutherford County Historical Society will be there to tell about our local history and answer your questions. That's 9 until noon Saturday. It's over at 717 North Academy Street here in Murfreesboro. And yes, it's absolutely free. Don't throw away Old Glory. Bring your tattered American flag to WGNS and let the girls from BSA Troop 2019 at Trinity United Methodist Church retire it with dignity. Plus, we also recycle Bibles. Those are WGNS Good Neighbor events.
Rutherford weather.
A blend of clouds and some sunshine developing this afternoon. We're to high in the low 60s. Tonight, mainly clear, a low near 35. Sunny Friday, high 64. I'm meteorologist Laura Lockwood on News Radio WGNS. Right now, 52.
Broadcasting from the Middle Tennessee Electric Studios, MTE Sharing Change has now donated more than $11 million to local nonprofits, assisting worthy causes in our community. MTE, serving to make life better since 1936.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
This is Bill Krause again on the second segment of the Roundtable, Thursday morning edition, WGNS, and we are having a visit with a very inspiring individual, a lady whose mark is felt throughout the Motlow State community, not only within her own department as dean, but throughout the campuses of Motlow State, Dr. Pam Harris. You know, it's kind of interesting, I'm sure you've been joked on this last year, but when I say Pamela Harris, I'm almost sounding like the last nominee for president, Kamala, when some people were calling her Kamala rather than Kamala.
Right.
So I'm sure from Pamela to Kamala Harris,
right,
kind of made a degree. We were going to start, before the break, talking about 2024.
Right.
And what a significant chapter in your life, and how that chapter not only was very critical and serious on its own nature, but what it is leading into afterwards. So, Pam, walk us through 2020. Did it start late 2023 diagnosis? Or
2024. It was 2024.
Actually, just 1 year ago?
It was. The 1 year anniversary was just 2013. It was February the 13th. Was just a year, was the anniversary. So I'll just go back to that date if that's okay with you.
Please. And kind of walk us through, not necessarily the detail of going to the doctor if you didn't feel well or what have you, but just the detail.
If it's okay, I will kind of tell that story because that's really kind of where it begins. Was February the 13th. Strangely enough, my husband and I met on October the 13th. Our first date was on October the 13th, and so we're kind of oddities. We don't believe in luck. We believe in fate, and so we got engaged on February the 13th because
It wasn't a Friday.
No,
okay.
October the 13th.
It was
we
a
went
Friday.
Out. Was a Friday.
Okay.
It was a Friday because we
Gotcha.
just don't believe in luck.
Sure.
You know? And so we're like, yeah, we don't care. And so anyway, so we got engaged on February the 13th. Well, on February the 13th of the 24, I woke up and my blood pressure was 210 over 108.
Had you had problems with blood pressure?
Periodically, but every once in a while I have this really high, at least in the last couple of years prior to this, I'd have like this spike in my blood pressure. Well, I just assumed my parents both have blood pressure problems. Up until that time, my blood pressure was perfect. It was like 120 over 70. Perfect blood pressure.
Can't do better.
No, yeah, it was great. And so for the last couple of years, I'd been having these spikes in that, but never this. And so I got up and it was, like I said, that 210 over 108. So I drove myself to the emergency room. Mike was at work. And so I drove myself to the emergency room and I got there. And they, of course, took me back immediately because of the fear of a stroke. Gave me some medication to bring my blood pressure down immediately, and then began to ask me, okay, what's wrong with you, with this battery of tests, all of these things going on, how much stress do you have? I laughed at that question, and so, just this long, arduous journey of tests.
Had it been a stressful time at that time for
yeah,
you?
February,
because you're getting into the spring.
Yeah, Dean World is very, we're working on fall schedule and evaluations and budgets, and so spring in college world for deans, very critical time, right? And so, and then lots of life things going on too, because I have 2 kids in college and all those kinds of things, and a granddaughter, and so anyway, so I'm, in the emergency room, and so they're running tests. They're just doing I don't even know. They did blood work. They did tests. They do all of these things all day long. So I'm literally there like 12 hours now, right? And they've run this whole battery of tests. And a young lady comes in, And she goes, I know in my heart, I believe with everything in me there's something here, and I don't want to send you home. And she said, please tell me anything there is that you can think of that it could be. And I said, sometimes I get a little nauseous and I have back pain. And they ran a CT. And when they ran the CT, young lady came back and said, there's a mass on your kidney. And they began to talk about what they needed to do. My husband is in MRI, and they began to talk about, biopsying this mass to see whether or not it was cancer. And we talked about that. And then, what should we do? You don't know if it's, cancer. And so, anyway, in the interim of that, some other things happened. It happened to be, I don't believe it was by chance. And I'm going to say this because I'm going to preface this with these are my opinions, not Motlow's opinions.
I understand. No,
right.
we left the Motlow hat a few minutes ago.
That's right.
We have the Pam Harris hat.
Right. This is mine. So in that, in that time period, so someone comes and says, hey, you know what? We happen to have this urologist, and I believe this was just God saving me. There was a urologist who had moved there 3 weeks prior from Texas and was an expert in removing kidney and kidney cancer. And he was retiring and moving there. And he happened to come, right? He happened to come by the hospital and agreed to look at my CT.
Certainly a coincidence.
Certainly
of course.
A coincidence.
Yes.
We know God doesn't work in coincidences,
Yes.
right? So he looked at my CT, and when he looked at the CT, he came back in, so my husband had gone to get help. And this was like, now I've been here 12 hours and 50 minutes, and Mike has been with me 12 hours and 50 minutes. He's gone for 10 minutes, and the doctor comes in that 10 minutes, of course. But I know everything is for a reason. He's gone to get. They don't want him to transfer me, because when a kidney, when you have a tumor that's cancer in your kidneys, if you, and this is information for anybody that's listening, if they biopsy it, what you can do is when you biopsy it, you actually can make it metastasize.
Wow, immediately.
Immediately. And so if you do that, that is often a mistake. You have put yourself into that cancer spreading. And so the option that the doctor came in and gave me is he came in and he said, which was such a shock at the time. Oh my gosh. He came in, and it's funny because now I'm sitting here with my eyes closed. I know you can see me, and I'm sitting here in that moment. And he walked into the room and he sat down and he said, listen, what I'm going to tell you is not what you're going to want to hear, but here's the truth. I'm going to tell you every word of it so you can know what you need to do. And I thought, that later on I looked back and knew that was such a blessing. People go months when they're diagnosed with cancer about not knowing what their plan is, not knowing what they need to do. That's a horrible part of cancer, is waiting. And so he sits down across from me and he said, you have a tumor, and it is larger than a golf ball.
Wow.
It is on the inside of your kidney, on the artery, and that is what caused the rise in the blood pressure.
And this is not a gradual diagnosis that you could see. You can be walking around with it for a long period of time.
2 years. He thought 2 years.
And
so
the slight backaches. We all get backaches. Yeah.
Most people don't know they have a kidney. Most of us don't have any kind of symptoms until you're in stage 3 or stage 4. Ooh. So to find it in stage 1 is a miracle, right? To have a doctor in the room to come in and say, listen, you have this, and here's what it is. It's on the inside. You cannot. Some people can have the tumor removed, part of it removed, but in my case, he goes, it's on the inside. It's on the artery. It's what's causing your blood pressure to go up because it's clamping on that artery. It's probably what was causing my blood pressure that entire 2 years, right, to go up. And so he said, this is the part that shocked me. You're thinking, okay, they'll go in and they'll remove that.
Remove it, and then you go home.
And he goes, they're going to have to take out your kidney. And that was such a shock. Yeah, that was a shock. Because a week before that, I had said, the worst thing that I could possibly imagine, and I hate to say it on radio, but it's the truth, is the thought of going on dialysis, because I'm such an active person, was just a scary thing to me. And so I'm thinking, oh my gosh, and so here I am sitting there, and he's going, but that's what you need to do. So for them to get, and you don't even know if it's cancer, right? So they're saying.
So the biopsy had not been completed yet at that point.
And you can't do the biopsy.
Oh,
right?
Because it's an interior
yes,
tumor.
And if you do a biopsy, then you take a chance on metastasizing it. Oh. So everything at this point is an absolute gamble.
Oh.
You just have to trust that what you're doing is the right thing, because they're going, you can't split up that tumor or metastasize. So, hey, and you can't even take that tumor out. So you have to take out your entire kidney on the chance that it's cancer. And I asked him, I said, they were talking about transferring at Vanderbilt. That's where Mike was trying to see about getting me moved to the main campus. And I looked at the doctor, and can I say his name? Is it okay if I say his
sure.
name? Dr. Rashears in Tullahoma, Tennessee. He saved my life. Mm-hmm. So, so I
Did he retire, or is he still?
No, he has a practice. He has a practice. So, and he's a urologist. He sees people. So, so I go, can I go home? And he goes, yeah, there's no reason for you to go. So we went home with the knowledge that would be what would have to happen. And then I, went on to see, I don't even remember now. It's so weird because that time process, it's kind of becomes a blur. I'm not sure even when I went on to see the urologist in Nashville after that. I don't, it was a while before we could get an appointment, March or April. And then I could not have surgery till May 31st. Oh. So here I am with this tumor.
How fast, did they know how fast moving it was?
Well, I under the assumption it was slow growing because of the size it was, and it took 2 years to grow to that.
But
you're still sitting there thinking,
tick, tick,
you're
tick,
still
tick.
going, I have a tumor. What if this grows just enough that it spreads, right? And so anyway, so they removed that tumor May the 31st, and then they send it off, right? Then they send it off, and I could not. It was 12 weeks because they have to glue it together, and I couldn't move for 6 weeks, and then the inside stitches are like 12 weeks. And
how long were you at Vanderbilt?
I was only at Vanderbilt like 2 days.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they sent me home with Mike, my husband, because he's in the medical field, and they want you out. And part of that is because they do not want you to have an infection.
Right.
And so they send you home. But I was glad. We had basically kind of like a hospital bed at my house. Mm-hmm. And so they sent me home, and he's a great caretaker. He took off 2 weeks to stay home with me, and then my son stayed home. My youngest son was at Motlow, so he took care of me too, my 19-year-old. And so anyway, I had to stay home and take care of myself, and they helped me out, of course. And then in July 19th, they finally got the results. It took them that long. Oh. So here we are, literally I've gone from February the 13th to July the 19th before I know that I do not have cancer. So I was cleared, but in the process of many people go years, before they know.
But what did they identify in July?
July the 19th, they identified I had clear margins. It was cancer.
It was cancer.
It was cancer, but they had gotten it all, and I had clear margins, and I no longer had cancer.
Wow.
But he did tell me at that time that it would take me at least a year from that point to try to recoup, that it would take my body probably at least a year. To try and get back to normal for my immune system. So I've tried to be careful about where I do go.
So you went back to work for the fall
August
term.
the 5th.
Yes, last year, yep.
So I was cleared July 19th, and I went back to work August the 5th. So in my insanity.
So faith coming out of that, and you and Mike, your wonderful husband, are writing and putting together and creating 33 steps.
33 days to Jesus. 33 days. When you're given a diagnosis like that, I remember, I'm just to be honest with you, and this is just to kind of tell people who are facing something like that. I know because I think you're a very wise man. I know you realize there are a lot of stages to grief, and when you are given a diagnosis like cancer, you have all of them. So I want to say that if somebody out there has cancer and you feel angry or you feel whatever you feel.
How did it get to me?
Yes, how did it get to me? And I'm going to be honest, that was my initial, I went home, and the first few days, I was angry.
Was there cancer in your family? See,
Lung.
genetically, I'm assuming, could have an impact.
Lung cancer, there
Smoker?
was... me?
No.
Oh, lung cancer, yes, for my family who smoked. But my aunt had cancer twice. She actually had ovarian cancer at 25.
Wow.
And so that's all on my mom's side. So there is cancer on my mom.
Tendency.
Yes, there is cancer on my mom's side. None on my dad, but on my mom's definitely. And so, but it's still that thing. You're just so shocked.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
You always think, and I don't think we could live our lives if we didn't have the ability to go, well, it's not going to happen to me. That's just kind of the way we have to live our lives, in my opinion, And so in that, I would say that anybody that feels emotion. So for me, initially, the first few days, I was so frustrated.
But you had a great medical team.
I did. I was
I
very
do
fortunate.
have to tell a tale. When you mention urology and you mention Vanderbilt, it goes back to 2007, I guess. So what's that, 18 years ago? And my primary doctor was concerned at some tests. He says, I've got to run this test, and then I've got to have you talk to urology. So I had the tests, and I had an appointment in urology at Vanderbilt. I walk in, I don't mind using his name, met with Dr. Chang. Dr. Chang comes out and greets me at the waiting room, and I'm walking behind him to the waiting room, and he says, without even looking at me, he says, you have cancer. I said, what? Not even sit down or what have you. Prostate, and so knock on wood, that's all been totally cured and what have you. But the point is, the shock, I certainly hear what you're saying is you're beginning to say futurism is no longer part of my dictionary. Futurism is now just in the matter of short time or reasonable time or long time. So we'll come right back in the 33 times steps to Jesus after this word from our people that pay the bills.
The city of Murfreesboro is growing, and we need your help to prove it. This is Mayor Shane McFarland, and participating in the special census helps ensure we get the funding we deserve for essential services like road paving, sidewalks, and parks. It's easy. Just visit murfreesborocensus.com, fill out the secure form, or complete the special census letter coming to your mailbox. Remember, every person counts.
Count me in.
Okay, count me in.
And count me in too.
Let's make sure Murfreesboro gets its true share. Complete the special census today.
Middle Point Landfill's Mike Klassen.
Between our property and the county landfill property, there are 1,000 contiguous acres that doesn't exist anywhere else in this county. And what an opportunity to do something big there. And we as Republic, as part of this long-term 50-year vision, are saying we will pay for and work with the county on building any number of recycling programs.
The answer's here.
We are ready to do something big there.
Middle Point Landfill.
Chip Walters here with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates. I was named a top 10 agent in the #1 Exit Realty office in America in 2021. The top question I get around town, how's the market? Good question. And the answer's changed a few times this year alone. I'd like to know what you've heard and share some solid data we have. Give me a call and let's have a cup of coffee and take a look at what's happening in your neighborhood. All my contact info is right on my website, choosechip.net. I'm Chip Walters with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates.
This is Kim Dunaway from Sunshine Nutrition Center. You hear me on Monday mornings at 7:20 talking about how to lead a healthier lifestyle. We carry supplements, personal care, and grocery items at both our Murfreesboro and Smyrna locations, family owned and operated since 1989.
Getting your guaranteed maximum refund with TaxSlayer feels like discovering a refund tree has grown in your backyard.
I'm the refund tree.
Sawing off its branches.
Hey.
Feeding them through a wood chipper.
My branches! My
bitches!
And dancing in its refund rain. Start for free and get your guaranteed maximum refund. TaxSlayer. File fearlessly.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
Bill Krause here, final segment of the WGNS Roundtable, Thursday morning edition. And we are right in the middle of hearing a tremendous story and the cause of faith and the rationale of a spirit. We're visiting with Dr. Pam Harris, who serves as the Dean of Humanities and Social Sciences at Mountain State, all of the campuses, not just Smyrna, but out of main campus and the other satellite campuses and programs throughout middle and southern middle Tennessee. So, Pam, you were carrying us through this life's journey this last year.
Yeah.
And in the remaining moments, let's talk about how that has triggered you off. You know, as a person, you are the motivating, the very faith-based person who just brings to anybody and everybody around you, you know. And I even have to make a comment, I'm not going to talk about this on the air in detail, but even if I have a particular issue with a student, not with the student, but a student has an issue, and you just grab hold of that issue. I'm not sure what we've resolved with the issue I just shared a couple of days ago, but you are a human being, not only with going through a medical journey, but a human being who is so committed to God, so committed to your faith. Talk about it.
For me, it is the way that I live my life. The one thing that I can always say that I believe people understand about me, I'm going to do the right thing. But that is led by the idea that I stand on my faith. Mm-hmm. And for me, when I was talking about when I was diagnosed with cancer, and that few days I spent being angry was quickly gone, and it was replaced by a song really that I listened to over and over by Mercy Me called Even If. And,
Even if.
And the words in that song essentially say, God, I know that you could come down in the middle of this, and I know you could place your hand on me, remove this tumor, and I could be cured. And I know that, God, that no matter what happens in this, that even if I don't make it, that even if something happens in this, even if, God, that this is my last days, I will remain faithful to you because you've been faithful to me. So Even If became the song that I listened to on repeat. I did not know what was going to happen. I did not know what the end outcome would be. And so I had to lean into that faith and say, God, it doesn't matter what happens. I know you're with me. I know you will sustain me. I know that if I do or do not make it, it is not about that. It is about the fact that I have had the opportunity. I know Christ is my Savior. I know that my faith has sustained me and that my life here will not end. This is not all there is for me. And so it became a really, a very, for me, a time that I really felt like, excuse me.
Oh, that's okay.
Right. That I really grew closer to God in my faith. And so I began doing TikTok, strangely enough. I got on TikTok just about every day. I did videos talking to people about what my faith was, and then from that blossomed into the idea of really talking about spending time with Jesus. And so my husband and I started working on this just like a small devotional, you know, something that people can read daily that's pretty simple about the idea about really what is it about Jesus that people are drawn to. And we started writing it. It was going to be like a monthly devotion, but then when I started writing it and I was typing in the title, I thought, it's 33 things, 33 days to Jesus, because, you know, his life was 33 years, and it became just kind of symbolic. Just a little bit more than a month is what people sometimes need.
Did you ever compare the 33 days from May 31st to July?
No, I haven't.
Did you count those days? It's almost just maybe 1 or 2 days over 33.
Right.
I was doing that in my mind, and I thought, you had the 33 days to know.
Yeah, right. So 30, that is very interesting. And for some reason that became the title of this. And it's funny because I didn't intend for it, because like the first, 2 weeks are about the characteristics of who Jesus is, that he is God, that he is man. But then the rest of those are all the things that he does for us. He's with us. He knows what it's like to suffer. He knows what it's like to feel pain. He knows what it's like to, cry. He knows what it's like to feel love. So all of those things that really became essential to my faith, for me to sustain, not sinking into depression or any of those kinds of things that became really important to me. It's what we are writing about. And the idea that every day you need to get up, you need to connect with your faith, you need to know that, no matter what, God loves you. One of my favorite that we wrote was about unconditional love. I don't know, in my opinion, and this is probably controversial to some people, because we think, well, parents have unconditional love, but for me, it's very difficult as humans to have unconditional love, because we are humans. I mean, even as much as we love our children, if they were terrible human beings and did something horrible, would we truly still, we talk about tough love and those kinds of things, but Jesus loved us no matter what. Right?
I'll give you a caption on one as you were talking.
Sure.
Because you certainly, both of you and Michael, reflect this. Share God's smile with at least one person a day. The smile. And I will even tell students in a college success, if you can smile, I find this fascinating walking through the hallways of Motlow, and about 50% of students will see a faculty member and will smile. 50% will have their heads down to the floor and not want to create eye contact. When I see that, I'll say, good morning, and how are you this morning? They say, who's this crazy guy who's asking how my morning is? But share God's smile with at least one person each day.
Right. So for me, that really is the goal, is I think that we can, speak with your actions, right? You don't have to speak with words all the time, and that's exactly what you're saying with a smile, right? People will know by your actions. I don't go around talking about this all the time. It's not something that I talk about at work, but I think that people know by my actions, I am kind, I am faithful, I am trustworthy.
But
right?
let me share something that nobody may have ever told you this. I get lots of emails. Your emails, not just to me, but your emails to faculty, your emails, broad emails, they are developed and constructed in a way that the Spirit is in it. I almost think we need a course in how to write successful emails rather than like the old-fashioned telegram. It used to be, we'll be at the train station at 3, stop. Pick me up, stop. But emails are who, what, where, why, and when.
Yeah.
If you look at your emails, and I say this, in full disclosure, that they're inspirational not by being written as an inspiration, but by the tone, style, and verbiage that you use that conveys what you're sharing.
Thank you. And always at the heart of what I try to write, is you were right, is I am thinking about the person. When the person reads this, when the person sees this, do they know that I care about them? And that's, even when you're talking about students who are in trouble, or people who are frustrated, or people who are having a hard time, a teacher's reaching out to me, and I get a lot of that because, I have many teachers. But in that moment, what they're really truly looking for, often they know what to do themselves. They're the teacher, but they need somebody to know, I care about you. I'm supporting what your decision is. Let me make a possible suggestion. But most of the time it is about the idea, I support you. I care about you. I hear you. And the same for students who are frustrated. I've had multiple students call me at the end of the semester, talk to me about doing a grade appeal or something along those lines. And I will say to them, well, did you do your best? But I will hear them. I'm sorry this one all the time. I'm sorry you had a hard time. I'm sorry you feel like that this was not the experience that you wanted. And they get to just voice their opinion. And A lot of times they will not file a grade appeal because they just want to be heard or seen. And, and even when I've had ones, I do academic misconducts and students come in, and I always leave it on this note. Instead of, you did a terrible thing, I leave it on, you know what, let this be a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Learn from this, grow from this. This is not who you are, and it doesn't have to be. And so when students call me with those kinds of things too, it is always about our opportunities. Like for me with having cancer, it was the biggest growth I probably ever had in my life. It's what has inspired me writing something.
Did you hear what you just said?
I did.
No, the biggest growth. So not the diagnosis of the kidney, but the diagnosis of the response.
Yes.
And I think that's phenomenal. Right. I don't know, and I'm sure people have told you this, but after the word came out about the diagnosis and the treatment, I am not sure just how many, but I know it was hundreds of people throughout the Motlow campuses that prayed for you.
Yeah.
And I think the prayer, we're talking about a public education, we're talking about First Amendment, never mix the two together, we're talking about religion in the classroom. But I think it transcended even above that. And the prayer and thought and hope and wishes through God to you were by the hundreds, not just staff, not just faculty, but from students. I had students in my own programs at Smyrna who had heard about Dean Harris and had contact with you, as you had explained before. And they said, I'm going to pray for Dean Harris.
Yeah,
and so that, you inspired, but that's not a good way to inspire when you have a negative experience. Now, I do have to ask you this, and this is fairly personal, but
sure,
this is radio, and I'm on the radio. Shortly before you went in for the surgery, for the removal, what were you thinking at that point in terms of prayer and thought? Those hours or those moments that they were prepping you, et cetera?
Right. I would say that right before you go in, of course, I saw everybody, and my husband was with me, and he is a great man of faith. He is truly God's gift to me, and so in those moments, I do remember thinking, if anything happens, we've had a great love story, and I have my children who I got to see, and that and my mom, and friends that were there. My truest friends. And I thought, that no matter what happens, I've had a wonderful, blessed life. I have my granddaughter. And if this is the last moment on life, that's okay too. And you really do think that way. I am thinking, yes, because he's going to be, I'll see you in a bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in your own mind,
will I?
Yes, you really do know, I'm not going to say that to him because that would just be unbearable for him. But for me, in my heart, you don't know that. You don't know that. So in my heart, I'm okay with the fact of I have lived the life that many people could never dream of living. I have had peace. I am content. I have had the greatest love of my life. I have known wonderful travels. I've done everything that I have wanted to do. I mean, I can always do more, but I have done so much in my life, and I am thankful for that. And I went in, nervous, of course, but also in the fact that as I, go in, yes, I knew God was with me.
But we will conclude with this. God has given you a ticket to get back on the plane, the plane of life. I expect to see you with me 20 years from now here at WGNS with Brian at the helm, sharing the subsequent 20 years since 2024. But you have a passport now to carry that message and carry that message with an even expanded and an even involved participation because you've gone through it, you've made it, and we wish you Godspeed, the very, very best.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pam Harris, Dean of Humanities and Social Science, Motlow State Community College, a woman of inspiration, a woman of faith, and a woman of the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.